How's it going, Rangers and overall hockey fans? Thank you guys so much for chiming in. This is episode 8. Pardon me, I was going to say 80 for whatever reason. 56 of Rangers Review. Myself, Wardy, alongside Snapboy Steven. Yes, Steven's here. He was able to make it this time. Not going to harp on it too much. Wasn't able to chime in last episode because of just a really stupid phone call that he had to deal with. But thankfully, it looks like that, that's no longer a worry. And we got a lot to talk about, a lot of positives. I'm on cloud nine right now. Can't get over last night, not only for the Rangers, but for my Mets too. It's been a whirlwind of 24 hours here in New York sports, but all in a positive way. So we got a lot of fun to break down, as we'll be breaking down the past 2 games for the New York Rangers, as they won and lost a game so far, splitting the series against the Pittsburgh Penguins. And now the Rangers look ahead this Saturday for Game 3 and beyond, and we'll be breaking down all of our initial reactions to these first 2 games, along with answering some comments before we wrap up the show here, as we are live on YouTube. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're listening wherever you get your podcasts. You'd like to have your comments heard, I would say try to watch it on YouTube when you can. But no less, a lot of breakdowns, Steven, but more than anything else, how are you doing today?
Good. Glad it's the weekend. Super glad that the Rangers didn't go to overtime again. Last night.
Grateful for that too.
I think Tuesday. It brought back memories of 2012 Tuesday. That game against the Washington Capitals, where Gabrick scored in triple overtime. That game on Tuesday brought back memories to that game.
That's what I was, Steven, when that game, we'll be breaking down here in a second, but that's all that was in my mind, because that was my first, true Ranger memory. That was the first year I followed them every single game. And when that triple OT I did a paper on that in my 7th grade English class too. That's a lot. So I was getting those same feelings again, but unfortunately, that is not how Game 1 ended up turning out.
Yeah, look, prior to last night, the most saves a goalie had made in the first and second playoff games combined was Gump Worsley in 1962 with 105. Igor Shesterkin in the first 2 games combined 118. That triple overtime game, it was the 3rd triple overtime game the Rangers ever played. They played one with Eddie Giacomin, who had 24 saves in triple overtime. One in 2012, the Capitals game with Lundqvist in net, with 45. And then Shesterkin with 79 saves. 79 saves.
Only 79, Steven. Not that's a big deal or anything,
Lundqvist and Giacomin in their triple overtime games combined for 69 saves. Shesterkin on his own had 79.
It's so hilarious to me that there are people out there that have the audacity to try to say that Igor is not the best goaltender in the league. And the fact that we could not even get this man a victory is what pissed me off more than anything beyond belief. Don't get me wrong, the Rangers deserve that victory. We all know what happened there, the third that we'll be talking about shortly. But when it came to overall performances, that man, that is probably, if not the best goaltending performance I've ever witnessed as a Rangers fan. If not, it is definitely up there in my top 2 or 3. Yeah. I mean,
I saw an article titled, "The Penguins have finally figured out Igor Shesterkin." No, you haven't.
The fuck out of here with that noise. They didn't figure out shit. Get out of here.
3 shots on goal to score 4 times. Igor Shesterkin, this is how crazy that night was. Igor Shesterkin conceded 4 goals and still had a save percentage of .952. Absolutely insane. Let's get into it. That first game.
Let's get into it. Yep. Let's break down everything on the first game, Steven. I'll lead it away, and then I'll share all my thoughts after you broke it down.
First period, amazing. Second period, disaster. Third period, slight recovery where the Rangers were robbed of a regulation win with that Hedl goal that was disallowed. But look, we can bitch about and complain about the referees all we want. I'm going to say this. If you cannot score more than 3 goals in 6 periods of hockey against Casey DeSmith and Louis Domingue, you have no right to complain about referees. When you play a playoff game at home and you go up against 2 third-string goalies for 6 periods and you come away with 1 even-strength goal, I don't care how bad the referees were. I mean, that's on the team. The
I will
Rangers.
say it's on the team for the loss in the end, but at the same time, Louis Domingue wouldn't have even happened if they just got the goal that should have been allowed there in the third.
Yeah, okay. So let's take that out of the equation. Let's look at regulation, right? First
Okay.
3 periods,
Yeah.
60 periods of hockey against Casey DeSmith.
Yep.
Casey DeSmith is like Keith Kincaid level, and
Yep.
you only score 1 goal at even strength. And remember at the start of the season, we complained about how the Rangers struggled to score at even strength? That problem was back on Tuesday. Yeah, Kreider scores shorthanded. It's great. No one's happier than I am to see Chris Kreider score another shorthanded goal. You get a power play goal, Adam Fox, who had not scored a power play goal this season yet.
I know. Isn't that hilarious how he somehow, some way scores in the first game of the playoffs for the Rangers, but he can't do it at all in the regular season on the power play?
Pretty crazy. But look, that game, it should never have gone to overtime, and I'm not talking about the referee's decision. The Rangers should have put this away long before that goal by Hedel was called back. There's just no excuse. You go up against the Penguins at home with Casey DeSmith in goal. I expect 5 goals. Simple. The Rangers couldn't get 5. It is what it is. Rangers lose game 1. It's frustrating.
What was even more frustrating outside of the loss because of the absolute dog shit. Pardon my French. You're gonna hear a lot of cursing in this one. I'm just telling you guys in advance that, I mean, for them to lose the way that they did, for it to be as grueling as it was through 3 overtimes, shades of that Gabrick OT winner against the Caps a decade ago. Fortunately, wasn't on our side this time, and that piss poor officiating. However, there obviously were bright spots in that game, and they would carry over into game 2, especially.
Hold on. One final thing about game 1 here.
Yeah.
You have a 2-goal lead into the second period.
Oh, you absolutely blew it. I mean, the Pens pistol whipped the Rangers in that second period. The Pens had 25 shots in the second period at least, and they just dominated us the entire period.
It took the Penguins 1 minute and 14 seconds to score after the Andrew Copp goal, and it took them 1 minute and 13 seconds to score after the Chris Kreider goal.
They were doing their best Rangers impression in the sense of resilience.
When you score a goal, you cannot afford to lean back in the playoffs. You cannot afford to sit back and defend the lead. You need to, and Frank Vetrano said this yesterday after the second period, second intermission, we need to put them on their heels. We need to keep the pressure on, and they didn't do that on Tuesday. That's why they lost. Yep. It is that simple. Yeah, sure. Gensel scores twice. Crosby was insane. That Crosby-Gensel Rust line, by the way, we need to figure something out. But, the second game, much better. We were without Goudreau, without Lindgren.
And they were without Raquel or DeSmith, and Casey DeSmith is actually out for the, remainder playoffs because he just had surgery today. So it'll be further notice.
The starting goalie Tristan Jarry wasn't even practicing on the ice yesterday, so who knows how long he will be out still.
Probably at minimum this entire series.
Yeah, but the Rangers start strong. Andrew Copp with his second of the playoffs, assisted by Panarin and Braun, who, chips in. Didn't play the first game, but the second game he's in, and he gets an assist. Unfortunately, only 2 minutes later, Gensel ties it up. It's same old story. But then the second period, things change. Strome with the deflection on the power play makes it 2-1, and then Kreider from Vetrano and Miller makes it 3-1. And finally, I was like, okay, we have a 2-goal lead. Let's see it out. Let's get the second intermission, and it wasn't meant to be. Crosby 3-2 with 1 minute and 26 seconds to go in the second period. Again, it was so frustrating. But that third period, the first couple of minutes, the Penguins were all over us, and it didn't look good. And I was like, if the Penguins score here, we're done. But they weather the storm. Panarin makes it 4-2, and then Vetrano with a great snipe makes it 5-2. this might be the closest 5-2 win the Rangers have had in years.
Yeah, it was 5-2, but it wasn't a blowout, if that makes sense.
No. You know what it reminded me of? And sorry for bringing this up, Ranger fans. This reminded me of the 2014 Stanley Cup Final. The Rangers lost that series in 5 games, 4-1. And when people look at that, they think, "Oh, it wasn't close," but it was.
Every single game was a grind, and the Rangers had
series was
leads
a
in
lot
at least
closer.
2 of those games.
Yeah, that series was a lot closer than the scoreline indicates, and last night's game was no different.
Yep.
The Rangers win 5-2, yes, but man, it was a lot closer than that. And then, of course, at the end, you know, Jeff Carter runs into Igor Shesterkin. It's down 3 goals with 2 minutes to go. There was no reason other than to spark something for Jeff Carter to do that. I have no doubt that was intentional. I'm shocked that we even got a power play out of it. So
I was a little surprised that we got a power play out of it too, just because of how the trend of the obvious officiating has been so far this series. And what's even more baffling to me about that is the fact that, you know, normally you see in playoffs, obviously officiating is different, right? They are going to bite their tongue when blowing the whistle a lot more. But especially at home, normally more often than not, you see a slight advantage a lot of times with teams. But no, the Rangers had the refs against them more than I could even begin to tell you. Everyone that's been watching those first 2 games knows damn well it goes far beyond just what we saw transpire in game 1 with the goal being turned away. After, of course, it doesn't take a rock scientist to figure that one out, that it was a proper goal for the Rangers, and I will stand by that with how he was out of the crease. So,
yeah, and you know, this game, I'm so happy we won. But you know what the biggest takeaway from last night's game is for me? How well Braden Schneider and Keandre Miller played.
Oh my God. And the fact that we need to give like a round of applause for Keandre or something. I mean, he, before our eyes, in a pretty short period of time, in the sense of especially over the past couple months, his game has just taken new heights for this Rangers team. This is by far the best hockey he's played so far in his career. He looks so composed, so balanced. Doesn't matter who's matching up against. He's shutting them down, and he's bringing that offensive production too. And Schneider's doing Schneider things. I mean, I'm just so happy that, and this is what I told you so long throughout the season, Steven, how, you know, even though that there were definitely games where I wanted Schneider or someone else, another young defenseman that wasn't getting playing time, I appreciate the fact that Gallant actually was making note of how the guys were performing and wasn't just throwing them in every single day because of the fact that they were, say, a veteran. You know, that's the Alain Vigneault type mentality. That's the David Quinn type mentality. But no, with Gallant, even though that he has been perfect by any means, no coach has been perfect. You can tell that he is really zoning in. He's adjusting on really a game-by-game basis. And especially down the stretch here, you can tell the comfortability with Schneider has been at an all-time high. And that's proving right, especially in the biggest stage of them all, that being in NHL playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, those 2 guys on defense. I mean, Schneider looks ready. Yeah, Schneider looks better in the playoffs than he does in the regular season. Miller is probably our best defenseman. I know Adam Fox, you know, offensively chips in a lot, but when you talk about defense, I don't think anyone on the blue line has had the impact that Miller has had so far defensively. And, you know, I've been very critical of Miller throughout the season, especially early on.
Yep.
The offense was always there. And I've always said the defense needs to be better. Defensively, he's just not there. You know, his positioning is not great. He doesn't use the poke check effectively. But now, man, he just toys with opponents. And I'm not talking about 4th line players. You know, he's toying with Evgeny Malkin. It's unreal. It's unreal to see this. You know, the last time I saw a defenseman who was this zoned in defensively was Mark Stahl, like playoff Mark Stahl. I know a lot of people don't remember how good Mark Stahl was in his prime.
Before he got hit in the eye by Scott Hartnell, like he was on another level.
Prime Mark Stahl defensively, I see those same plays from Keandre Miller. He takes the body when he needs to take the body. He poke checks when he needs to poke check. But on top of that, the skating, you know, he skates himself out of trouble better than anyone on the team. And it's unbelievable to watch this kid grow. And same with Schneider. There was a play, I think, in the first game where the puck bounced off the boards and two Penguins are trying to line him up for a hit. And he pulls back. So the Penguins players hit each other.
It's like, you know what that reminded me of a little bit? I don't know if you're aware of the Three Stooges, but it's this old American show, and it would just be these three boneheads that would always do stupid stuff with each other. And normally you would see one of them be like the leader of the pack while the other two are acting up and being stupid. That's exactly what it reminded me of. You step away like you're the adult in the room, and then you just have these two kids going at it. That's how it felt with that collision.
Yeah. But no, those two kids are great. And, offensively, I think the Zibanejad line wasn't great in game one, but game two, they were better. Zibanejad himself hasn't really been able to contribute a lot offensively, but
he was an absolute horse, game one especially. I mean, let's not forget, I understand that was such a brutal loss. We can, of course, deal with that more now because the Rangers responded the best way possible, but something that I feel that didn't get nearly enough credit that he deserves is Mika absolutely hustling his ass off this entire series so far.
But no, that second line with Panarin, Strome, Kopp, was good in game one, good in game two. But for me, the line that stands out is the kids line.
Oh my God, Steven, I've been. Why do you think I got Laffy on the wall right now? I mean, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you don't need to have crazy point production to show that you're being productive. Gallant said it himself today. He actually pulled Laffy aside and told him how impressed he is. I'll actually tell you right now. This is what came out from Vince McCurgliano just an hour ago at the time of being live here for Rangers Review episode 56. He said the following. Okay, so Gallant also pulled Lafreniere aside today to offer words of encouragement and let him know he's pleased with how he, Kakko, and Hedl have been playing. And then Gallant said the following, and I quote, "For a kid line going up against the lines that they're playing against, I'm really happy with them right now. They have been phenomenal. There's no better feeling too, Steven. This is the best hockey that they played in unison together all year long, and it's coming when it matters most."
And what really stands out to me is that Lafreniere and Kakko have played a different style of hockey.
Yeah. Yep.
We talk about how playoff hockey is different. These kids have adjusted to playoff hockey. I think the Zibanejad line hasn't really. They still play their own style. They still play their own game.
Yeah,
their own brand of hockey. And some moments it works, and other moments it doesn't really. Same with Panarin. Panarin's just being Panarin. But
I mean, Panarin with a 3-point game last night too. Breadman made all that happen.
Yeah, but especially Lafreniere and Kakko have reinvented themselves for the playoffs, and it's phenomenal to see. Lafreniere is throwing the body around. He's dropping the gloves. He's standing up for Shesterkin and getting hit by Jeff Carter. Kakko is a beast. Kakko is just outmuscling players left and right. He's skating the puck out of the zone. This kid's line, they may not have the goals, but man, they're fun to watch.
Who Laffy is reminding me more and more of, and it's funny because when you're basing things on like a style, you could even say that the same applies to Kakko, but especially Laffy. He's reminded me a hell of a lot of Rick Nash. And it's hilarious that he is because of the fact that, like Rick Nash, when Rick Nash came to the New York Rangers, other than that 140-goal season, he was a different player than what he was throughout his prime with Columbus. He adjusted. His two-way game became phenomenal. Huge on the penalty kill, an aggressive forward that, again, struggled with his finishing. We all know that far too well. But just his overall ability, especially to grind out teams game by game. You're seeing that with Laffy, and not that Laffy's going to develop in that sense, but it is kind of bizarre, the similarities with how they take the body, their playmaking ability, their two-way presence. I mean, by all means, Laffy and Kakko, they're no slouches on the defensive end. They're not. I love Breadman, but we all know Breadman is the reason for that turnover and the Gensel goal yesterday too. So, it's little things like that, especially at their ages. That is nothing short of impressive. I mean, by God, this is the best thing that us as Ranger fans could have hoped for. Seeing these young kids together, this is what we said going into the year. When I think that's when they originally had Gauthier, Hedl, and Laffy for the third line. There's a lot of risks with this line, but there's also a lot of potential. Take out Gauthier, put in Kakko, and we're getting that potential.
Yeah. Yeah. And overall, just I like offensively, that Kreider and Kopp, funny story here. I've been joking about the 1994 references this season.
Oh my God, what's the latest one?
Chris Kreider and Andrew Copp are the first pair of Rangers to start the playoffs with back-to-back goals since Mark Messier and Alexei Kovalev in 1994.
Oh, you son of a bitch, Steven. Come on, stop it. Can we
It has
talk?
happened
Go ahead.
prior to this year. It happened 5 times. Paul Thompson and Will Cook in 1931, Pete Stemkowski and Walt Kazak in 1973, Anders Hedberg, Ulf Nielsen, and Ron Duguay in 1981.
Wow.
Bernie Nichols and Mark Janssens in 1990, and then Messier and Kovalev 94, and now Kreider and Kopp. And another thing on Andrew Kopp, I've been keeping track of production in the regular season by players traded in the month of March.
Yeah.
I went through the same thing for the playoffs now. Nine deadline acquisitions have put up points so far for their new team. Vetrano is the only one with 3 points. Then Kopp and Giroux have 2 points, and then there's 6 players with 1 point. Brendan Hagel, Max Domi, Arturi Lekkonen, Andrew Cogliano, Nico Sturm, and Justin Braun, who got an assist. So out of the 9 players, the Rangers have 3 of them in this list.
And speaking about that production, isn't it insane? And granted, look, I know we're only through the first couple games, but if it's not, and we don't win, we're not in any of these games the way that we are if it isn't for Andrew Kopp. And I love that, that chemistry with Panarin has been so elite. I mean, back-to-back games where he gets himself like beautiful one-tees in the slot right in front of the net. And the second game yesterday, obviously, set up beautifully by Breadman. I mean, he's been a finisher. He's over a point per game since arriving with the Rangers. I mean, this just gives you further reason as to why Kopp, you need to make sure that this man does not go anywhere this offseason. I'm sorry. You can't do it. You just can't. Him and then Vetrano to put the icing on the cake with the beautiful play along the board to drag it, then get a nice snipe off on Louis Domingue to make it 5-2. I mean, they're all just producing at a high level, and they're all clicking. And this is again without defensively from Keandre and from Schneider without Lindgren. Without Lindgren was massive enough yesterday, and for Igor to stand on his head, just being stellar per usual. But then offensively, to see what they are doing with these new acquisitions, when, of course, you still don't have Tyler Mott, and now we lost Barclay Goodrow. Goodrow is out for the entirety of the series now, more than likely, according to Gerard Gallant. So that's a massive blow for the Rangers. So they need these guys to continue stepping up, but so far, so good.
I did see Tyler Mott is back skating with the team, though. So
that's awesome. That's great. He's not going to be back for the series, I don't think, but it should the Rangers, knock on wood, leg this one out. Hopefully we can see him in round 2. Should
so a couple more things. Yesterday was the 1-year Rooneyversary.
Oh, since he went.
1 year since he was mocking Tom Wilson on the bench. The most epic thing he's ever done.
Steven, if I were to ask you in that moment a year ago that the Rangers would be where they are right now this year, what would you say?
I probably would have asked David Quinn's gone then. No, look, I don't think anyone expected the Rangers to be where they are right now. I expected them to make playoffs, yes. I didn't expect them to have home ice advantage. But look, we split games 1 and 2. I really wish we would have won game 1, but now we go to Pittsburgh. You have to win at least one of them. If you win both, you come back for game 5 to put the nail in the coffin on next week. But yeah, look, this Rangers team, there's so much to love. Keandre Miller became the 10th youngest defenseman in Rangers history to record a multi-point game in the playoffs yesterday.
Yeah, with the 2 apples.
Braden Schneider, the 3rd youngest defenseman in Rangers history to record a point in a playoff game. Only Earl Siebert and Ron Greshner were younger than Braden Schneider. Earl Siebert played, I think, in the 1930s.
Did you say Earl Siebert?
Earl Siebert?
Oh, Siebert. Gotcha.
And then Ron Greshner. Braden Schneider, 20 years, 228 days old. Siebert, 20 years, 108 days. Greshner, 20 years, 110 days. Yeah.
You know what's even more amazing about Schneider, Steven? It's the fact that out of all the young Ranger defensemen, he was the man that we focused about probably the least heading into this year.
Well, it's because he was the youngest.
Yeah, that's my point.
And it has nothing to do. There's nothing against Schneider, but
Yeah.
you know me. I like to look at precedent. I like to look at the odds based on, results in the past. And if
The
you look
odds
at
weren't in his favor.
the odds weren't in his favor. Defensemen his age who are drafted outside the top 10 usually need an extra year to adjust before they are really NHL ready. But Schneider defied the odds. It's unbelievable what he's done this season. Absolutely unbelievable. And look, we're getting we're getting close to the point where we're gonna have a defense that's fully homegrown. If you include players that played their first NHL game as a Ranger, you consider them homegrown, like Lindgren and Fox. Then you have Schneider, Miller, and then you have Jones, Lundqvist, and Robertson still, in the pipeline. You have Hunter Skinner, who has an outside chance, maybe. Simon Kjellberg, who had a breakout season this year in college. It's a lot of fun to watch these kids. And yeah, I don't want to get too much into it because we're still in the playoffs, but in a year or two, Jacob True is probably going to be gone, and we have potentially an entire blue line that made their NHL debut as a Ranger.
Homegrown talent, baby.
And the Nashville Predators did it. The
Yes.
Carolina Hurricanes did it.
Mm-hmm.
And you take so much pride in it when you built it yourself, instead of trading for players, instead of signing them as free agents. It's just so much more fun to me, at least, to watch these kids come through the system and be successful. Man, and on offense, Kreider with a career year, Lafreniere, Kakko, and Hedel, who really shifted into another gear for the playoffs. Man, that third line reminds me of the Brassard, Zuccarello, Pouliot line.
It has shades of it out of nowhere. That's the thing. We got a taste of it this year, especially down the stretch through the last handful of games.
There's not. I mean, stylistically, they're not the same. I mean, the Brassard line in 2014 was much more dynamic, and they produced, but in terms of the impact they're making on the ice, look, when that line is out there, I'm not worried. And this is a line that on average is 21 years old.
And Gallant isn't worried either. Nope. That's become abundantly clear so far in the series.
There were shifts last night where I think it was Schneider, Miller on defense, and then Lafreniere, Hedel, and Kakko. The oldest player on the ice for the Rangers was 26-year-old Shesterkin.
That's crazy. Shift.
The oldest skater was Philip Hedel.
I know. Philip Hedel is one of the longest tenured New York Rangers right now. Can we just take a moment to appreciate that?
Third longest tenured Ranger, behind Kreider and Zibanejad.
And I would like to give a massive props to Hedel specifically, because Hedel by no means had an easy year between the injuries that he dealt with and, of course, just a lack of consistency. And he's a man where we still do not know, obviously, what his future holds. And it's hard to envision potentially if he will still be a Ranger next year with these key free agents coming up. But the Rangers have to find some way to get some cap space. But for right now, Hedel, being a young stud that he still is, to see some of the best hockey that I think we've ever seen with him for the Rangers. I mean, the fact that not just him, but again, Laffy and Kakko are adjusting their games. And this is not an easy thing to do. I'd like to make that clear as well. To adjust this early in your career, when all of you have zero playoff experience, to understand the assignment and accept it and know, hey, yes, maybe I do have to play a little different than my normal game, but that's playoff hockey. You have to adjust to what you're working with, who you're going up against. And all three of them on this chaotic yet so entertaining, fun third line, they are getting the job done. And I feel just as confident with that line right now as I do with any other line in this lineup.
Well, I'll say this, though. Hedel has made it a lot harder for Drury to move on from him.
Yep. And again, playoff hockey performances will make up for what you do in the regular season in a lot of ways. And Hedel's doing exactly that.
And remember 2020, the qualifying round against the Carolina Hurricanes? Yep. Kakko was our best player in that series.
Yep, and I'm glad you brought that up because it feels like light years ago since we had the bubble. But Kakko was really that lone standout because no one else was standing out. If they were, it was for a negative, not a positive.
Yep. Yeah, it was. That was rough. But yeah, Kako was good back then. Kako is good now. Look, that disallowed goal in game one, man. That move he made onto the Smith.
So good. I mean, he
If Dumoulin, I still believe that if Dumoulin doesn't touch him, he cuts in front of the Smith and goes around him and doesn't even touch the Smith. He doesn't even enter the crease.
Oh yeah, and it's just such a bullshit call because we've seen earlier this year, right? When the Rangers or other teams have been in that situation, but that they basically pushed themselves into the goaltender or something like. No, this was so blatant that it wasn't Kako, the one truly being at fault here. It wasn't like he went and steamrolled to Smith by any stretch. And for them to still get blamed, I mean, in my opinion, I think that was just such a perfect rig job by the NHL because it's like we have a chance to make this go to the playoffs. I get it that Pittsburgh Penguins are a smaller market, but it's Sidney Crosby. If we can do something to help him prolong things, then we're going to do it. And they did exactly that. And again, it sucks. It's like you read these things from a mile away. I wasn't even shocked by the call. I was just disgusted by it. I think there's a difference between knowing when something might not go your way versus hoping that it will and you're still screwed over in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I'm just really happy what I see from the kids, both on offense and on defense. I cannot wait. I really cannot wait for game 3.
It's gonna be electric in Pittsburgh this Saturday. That's why we're recording right now, guys. And we're gonna be getting the comments fairly soon because we don't have too much more that I think we personally need to break down about these two. I don't. This is different, I would say, than when we've done our episodes during the season. Breaking down every number bit by bit. I think we're gonna just ride a little bit more with the emotions. If in case you guys are wondering, I got all my notes here. I got all the numbers of every play that transpired. But I mean, all we know right now is that the Rangers are tied 1-1 in this series. I can confidently say that I truly believe the Rangers have been and will continue to be the better team in this series. Now, again, that doesn't guarantee you victories. That doesn't guarantee anything. And it will not be an easy matchup going to Pittsburgh whatsoever either. But this is a Ranger team that, again, as you were complaining from game one, not taking enough of advantage against the third and then fourth string goaltenders second and third for the Penguins. Well, now we just got the third for basically the entirety of the series. Louis Domingue, I don't think we're going to see Jari again this series at all, I should say. And DeSmith is gone now with his surgery. So the Rangers just need to keep putting the pressure. And, Steven, I'm not sure if you saw what I had to say for the series preview heading into this matchup because I know you were busy with your call. But I really emphasized for the Rangers, not just for game one, but for the series as a whole, is to jump on the Pens early. That's what they did game one, but to be aggressive as all hell. That led to Rickard Rakell getting hurt the way he did that we saw. He did not play yesterday, obviously. The Rangers have gotten a little banged up themselves with Lindgren, Goodrow, and of course Igor, even though that Igor is okay with his little incident yesterday with Carter. That was unfortunate. But point being is that the Rangers have this aggressive factor, what you need in playoff hockey. Take advantage of the opportunities given to you, especially play bigger against a team that has looked smaller at times. Yes, they have the playoff experience, but the Rangers are a young, more vibrant club that actually is able to defend themselves for the first time in a while. When you have Revo in there, that definitely helps. We saw the massive hits that he's done already so far this series, just lighting everyone up. I mean, this is great because even though that, yes, the Penguins, they won the first game, the Rangers are really grinding them down early, and this is hopefully something that they can continue into Pittsburgh. There's nothing better than making a statement. Jump on them early. I don't wish injury on anyone, but I will say that from how the Rangers have played in a lot of ways so far with this aggressiveness, continue to push the gas pedal. This is justice for Tyler Mott. I'm not over that schmuck that hurt him in the Penguins game in the regular season. We need to continue to push, the metal of the pedal. You just got to keep going right now because they are very much in a good spot, I would say. But that aggressive factor, especially from the young kids, that needs to continue. You have to be relentless if you want to get out of this series. Maybe you'll be able to get out of it before even 7 games, but you just got to be nonstop. No gas, no brakes, all gas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's look, what they started really well in game 1. They started really well in game 2, but we need a 60-minute effort. And I know that's like a cliche thing to say, but maybe not even a 60-minute effort. Give me a 50-minute effort. Because if you have a bad period, it ruins your chances of winning, especially against a team like the Penguins. The Penguins who, and I'm not one to complain about referee. I'm
No,
not.
you bend over backwards, I feel like, to defend a ref, if anything. It's not the other
Well, I
way
mean,
around.
maybe not defend, but I would at least speak up against always blaming the referees. I
You
think
will put
blaming
your
the referees,
bias aside right away, is what
yeah,
you'll do.
yeah, blaming the referees, I think, is an easy cop out. No pun intended. Um, the same way complaining about the ice is
Yeah.
stupid because both teams play on the same sheet of ice. I'm not one to complain about the referees, but man, these two games, especially the first game, we only get one power play, and there was stuff that could have been called.
So much bullshit that should have been called. So much.
Crosby,
Ridiculous.
Crosby clashing Fox, Malkin cross-checking
Yeah.
opponents left and right. But
And then you saw that little BS cross check that the Rangers got called for. Love tapped him. Like
I Yeah, listen, I know it was a weak call, but man, Nemeth needs to be smarter than that.
Oh, Nemeth has been dog shit. I'm sorry.
Nemeth,
Nemeth has not been
look,
help at all.
I
And
know, I know that cross-checking call in game 2 in the first period on Nemeth was soft, but don't give them a reason.
yeah, that's fair.
And
That's fair.
you're talking about making contact with someone's back away from the play in the neutral zone while your team is on offense. It is such a stupid penalty. And yes, it was a weak call. I don't care. Don't give them a reason. Don't give them a reason to call it. There was no reason there at all to engage with Pedersen. I think it was Marcus Pedersen. Like I said, don't give them a reason. It's that simple. But the referees they were better in game 2, but still a lot of things they let go. A lot of things where, the Jeff Carter Shesterkin incident, I was shocked we came away with a power play.
As was
I
I.
was shocked. But Evan Rodriguez slew-footed Shesterkin in the first minute of the game.
But we won't talk about that.
And nothing was called. This is the stuff where, for once, I side with Ranger fans complaining about the referees because it is obvious in these two games. But despite that, we won a 5-2 win in game 2. Now we go on to Pittsburgh. Win 1 in Pittsburgh, and you at least come back for game 5 tied. At least tied for game 5.
Yep.
And you look, the Penguins are without Tristan Jarry. Casey DeSmith had surgery today, so he's out for the remainder of the playoffs. Louis Domingue is going to be their starting goalie, and he's on an emergency contract. He's not even under contract. He doesn't even count against the cap. They called up Alex Dorio from the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins to be the backup. There's no excuses. There are no excuses. When you go up against a third-string goalie for 60 minutes, you need to put 4 or 5 goals behind him. Put the puck in the net 4 or 5 times.
Don't let him get hot and have like a Dustin Tokarski moment or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The fact that series against the Canadiens back in 2014 still went 6 games with Tokarski in that pissed me off so much.
Yeah.
At that point, you should win every game.
Agreed.
This team needs to stop relying on Shesterkin as much as I love him. And listen, I put up his jerseys for a reason because he's been lights out. I'm going to build a shrine for this guy before he even retires. It's unbelievable what he's doing.
Steven, we need to come up with like a prayer for him every night. We need to figure something out.
The one moment where I was screaming at my TV, the Rangers were on the power play. Oh, no, it wasn't a power play. The Penguins pulled their goalie.
Yeah.
We're up. I think we were up 5-2. 5 minutes to go.
Yeah. We all want him to get a goal.
Trouba and Miller were passing it back and forth in their own zone. And all I can think is, pass it back to Shesterkin, you cowards. Let him shoot it on net. But then you saw an overhead view. Letang was in the crease when that happened.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty of Shesterkin, right? Even though he hasn't scored a goal in the NHL, the fact that he's trying to score goals puts the opponent on notice, puts the opponent's, makes them think twice. Like
They know he's actually a threat because you see it with all the crazy dump passes that he makes on a game-to-game basis.
And here's the thing. When you put someone in the crease to cover your empty net, you're no longer playing a 6-on-5. So
that's actually a great point. Yeah, that's true.
Chasing the puck 5-on-5 with a skater and net.
Yeah, so what the hell's the point of doing an empty net to begin with?
It completely negates the advantage you normally have of pulling the goalie. If you have the puck as the Rangers, even if you just have the opportunity to pass it back to Shesterkin, make them believe that you're going to. You don't have to do it. Just make them think you're doing it.
Yeah,
because it pushes them back. It's I think in football, in American football, they call it prevent defense.
Oh yeah, yep.
Where you go all the way back to make sure you don't give up a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that was a thing of beauty, and that was a thing of beauty. Even though I was screaming at my TV to frickin' pass the puck to Shesterkin.
It's gonna come. It'll come very soon, regardless on if it's this year or next. It's inevitable.
I don't think a goalie has ever scored in the playoffs.
So it looks like the Rangers have a chance to make even more history soon, huh?
Shesterkin has already made Rangers history. He has already made NHL history with most saves in the first 2 games of the playoffs.
I mean, we're so spoiled. We're just so effing spoiled. I mean, what, you thought we were spoiled when we had Hank? Little did you guys know that we had a little Hank 2.0. And not even I shouldn't even say Hank 2.0. We have now Igor. We have the heir apparent. And he has potential to have even a higher peak. Somehow, some way, this man actually has potential to have a higher peak in his NHL career than the great.
It's like the Packers going from Favre to Rodgers.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good one.
And I'm pretty sure there's a baseball analogy too, with the Yankees going from one.
So many. I mean, yeah,
one legend to another, but
yeah,
take away the fact that we didn't win any Stanley Cups. Lundqvist to Shesterkin is like the equivalent of going from Favre to Rodgers. I mean, it's unbelievable. Teams in the NFL go decades without a decent quarterback. Teams in the NHL go decades without an elite goaltender, and we just swap one for the other.
That's the one thing. That's the one thing. Thankfully, us Ranger fans have had a consistency with. If it's not much, at least it has been goaltending. Because at the end of the day, that position matters. If you couldn't tell already, I don't know. If you don't understand the importance of goaltending, then I don't know what to tell you.
But Shesterkin is a beast. Yes, he's a great goaltender, but the personality, the tenacity, the balls on the guy. He has the mentality to be a star for over a decade in this league. And we're only talking about his second full season. Actually, his first full season.
Yep. Yeah, because he's dealt with injuries and then COVID, everything.
Yeah.
Here, I do see, before we go forward, I do see a donation I'd like to address quick. And then, if you don't mind, Steven, I would then like to pivot to answer questions for 5-10 minutes before we wrap things up. But Alex here with the $5 donation. Thank you so much for that, Alex, here in the live stream. Alex says, when we said we wanted the Pens in the playoffs, we didn't say we wanted the Pens referees too. I know. If anything, keep them in Pittsburgh. You know what? I can understand it, a lopsidedness and officiating when you are the away club. I get that. That happens a lot. That is common. But by God, when that shit happens at the Garden, I'm sorry. There's very little that I can say other than the fact that it's ridiculous that we are actually seeing it transpire. But
there's questionable icing calls and non-calls to the point where when the Rangers actually get an icing, the Garden explodes and erupts in cheers and joy and they're applauding the referees for calling an icing correctly.
It's actually nuts. But
that reminds me of this. It was years ago. There was this group of fans that was at a hockey game. Yeah. They were dressed in referee jerseys.
Yeah.
And they weren't cheering for the home team or the away team. They were cheering every time an icing was called.
Proper officiating, baby. Yeah. That reminds me of not just for hockey, but I've seen in baseball too. Some people have been idiots and will dress like a home plate umpire sitting right behind home plate. and then they're doing the same strike and ball
they're making the
call.
signs and
Yeah.
the
And
gestures.
then they're doing it until they get called out. It's hilarious. But that actually reminds me, and this is something that I did want to mention because I have to, Steven. Steven, the same way that the Rangers had themselves a absolutely massive victory last night, the New York Mets had an absolutely massive one too. So we're going to have to make this Mets podcast for like a minute and 30 seconds. So bear with me. The Mets last night won a game that they were losing 7-1 entering the ninth inning. And they scored 7 runs in the top of the ninth inning. The first time they have done that to come back from a 6+ deficit in the ninth in 25 years. They were 0-330 entering tonight's game in that situation. And they scored 9 effing runs in Philly against the Phillies I despise so much. I'll be out of game actually this Sunday for the series finale. And the Mets ended up winning 8-7. And to add it, even make it even crazier, Steven, I put down a bet on the Mets to win when they were losing 5-0. I won exactly $330. If that isn't the most bizarre coincidence, I don't know what is. Absolutely ridiculous.
That's pretty cool. Look, I don't know a lot about baseball, but yeah, if you're down 6 runs in the ninth inning and you still win, I think the only way they could have made it better if they were the second team to bat in the inning and you would have a walk
off. Yeah, if they were home, that would have been even sweeter. Yeah, that would have been crazy. Yep.
That would have been even better. But
I respect I love the fact that you actually know that, because I know that you're not as intertwined obviously with baseball, but you know the home and away. That's good.
Until 2 years ago, I refer to an RBI as an assist. So
there you go. I mean, you're not far off. You're not completely far off.
For someone who's never watched had never watched baseball at the time, it's not a crazy way of describing an RBI.
No, it's not absurd.
No. But I went to one baseball game in 2019 where the Yankees won the division at Yankee Stadium. Only baseball game I've ever been to. I've been to Citi Field for the Winter Classic.
Yeah, we got to get you there for a Mets game this year. I'm sorry to my Yankees viewers, but it has to be done.
My fiance is taunting me about going to Citi Field during the summer because then I won't get hypothermia.
Yes, you can relive the weekend that you met your soon-to-be wife, but this time you can actually be coherent for the entire time.
The only other baseball stadium I've actually been to, like inside, is Safeco Field in Seattle where the Mariners play?
I don't know. Wait, I think Mariners is T-Mobile.
Oh, they changed it? Yeah, because
I think they changed it. I'm not don't quote me. I think they did though.
Yeah, the Seahawks Stadium used to be CenturyLink and now it's Lumen Field. So it's probably a new sponsor. I was at the Seattle Mariners Stadium in 2018, I think.
Yeah, T-Mobile Park. Yeah, they must have changed it.
2018, there was like this Christmas festival, and a friend of mine lives in Seattle. His wife had tickets. He's like, "Oh, we'll go. We'll have some beers. We'll just sit in the bleachers, and we'll have them, walk around and do all the Christmas stuff, and we'll just have some beers." Like, all right. And they had like this maze on the field, and all I was looking for was home plate. And eventually, I found where home plate was, and I waved at my friend like, "Hey, dude, it's home plate." And he goes,
"You're safe. You're good. You scored."
Yeah. So I've been to 3 baseball stadiums. I walked past Busch Stadium 2 months ago in Seattle or in St. Louis. That was probably one of the nicest baseball stadiums I've seen. It's a really nice building.
Oh yeah, I've always wanted to go to Busch Stadium. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Because they have this little baseball village right next door with bars and restaurants, and that's really cool.
That's a bunch. And to conclude the baseball discussion before we answer a couple comments before getting out of here, there are a bunch of stadiums that have really nice restaurants, bars like connected. And for example, I went to Fenway for the first time last year with a large group of Mets fans. Yeah, in Boston, and it was so awesome because I had never been to Fenway or Boston in general. Loved the vibe there, even though the Mets lost. It was a great experience, and it's really fun because it's like a little party town right outside the stadium because they have a brewery, they have a restaurant, and they also have it where when you go in, you show your ticket, but you're still on the street. It's just like a whole block around the stadium of you getting a drink all around on the street and stuff, have a good time, basically pregame party, but you're still connected with the team versus say doing it by yourself in the parking lot or something, and then you go into the game. And that's only one example of many parks that you can go to where they have, like Philly, great example. Philly has all their stadiums in one hub. You know, you have Lincoln Financial, which is the Eagles. It's a lot of fun. That's as much as I despise Philly, especially if you have multiple sports in a day, you can hit multiple games in a day. You can be
I went to
drinking all day.
I went to the Wells Fargo Center in 2019 for the Rangers preseason game there, and I noticed that the football and baseball stadium are like in that same. There's like this one big area.
It's so sick. It's just a massive parking lot, and you can do whatever. Because again, they have live entertainment normally. They have again restaurants, different bars. It's just a lot. It's a lot of fun. You can make a whole day out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into a couple comments now. See what you Ranger fans have to say here in the chat. So if you guys do have any comments that you'd like us to answer over the next 5 to 10 minutes, by all means, ask them away right now. And again, for people that are listening on replay or wherever you get your podcasts, if you too want your comments answered, all I would truly recommend is try to find us on YouTube at Rangers Review, our YouTube channel, and, you know, try to get in for the live streams when they happen. Unfortunately, we're not as consistent as we would like to be at this point in regards to how early we can set a stream up so you guys know about it ahead of time. Like today, I wasn't able to set it up until 2 hours prior, but we do try our best, especially last episode. You guys knew about it like a day prior on YouTube, and we'll try to do our best going forward to be exactly like that so you can chime in. But I do see a couple comments, so let's get to them. This one's from NYR Mike. How's it going, Mike? He says, do I think Shesty's healthy after that incident with Carter and it will not affect his performance? I think Shesty's fine. I got to be honest with you. Now, there were a lot of arguments saying that Shesty was embellishing what transpired yesterday. You know, that he was focusing on one part of his body. Then he was focusing on his back. He kind of, you know, like flailed it, you know, made a little bit, made it maybe a little bit more dramatic than what it originally was. And regardless of that, quite frankly, I don't care, especially with how the officiating has been this series. By all means, if you could do anything to try to give yourself a better shot at getting a power play, then by all means you do it, as long as you don't go too far. I didn't think Igor went too far. Maybe there's a slight bias because I'm a Rangers fan, but I also know how one-sided the officiating has been this entire series. So I'm going to take that. And to answer the question, though, I don't think Igor's hurt. I don't think he's phased at all. It looked bad at first. It did. But then it kind of felt like a soccer play in the sense of, you know, he got up and he was ready to go then.
Yeah, and I think it's more the fact that as a goalie, when you go down, it's hard to get up. You know, it's not like a forward or a defenseman where, you know, you just get up from being hit. You know, you're wearing pads, you're wearing equipment that slows you down. You know, if you are like on your knees, that's one thing. If you're on your back, it takes you a little longer to get back up. I don't know if there was embellishment. You know, sometimes you tweak something and it hurts for about a minute, and then after that it's gone. You know, I think he's fine. I think Shesterkin's going to play. I have no doubt in my mind. But man, if this happens again, look, I don't condone injuring players. I'm just saying, if another player runs into Shesterkin, all bets are off.
You have to stand up because he's literally this team.
At that point, I want Reeves to go after Crosby.
Yep.
You know,
you have to. There has to be a no nonsense mentality in situations like this. Simply put.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, I actually shared the Tortorella interview from 10 years ago last night after the game.
Was that after which game?
The Tortorella interview where who was it? Brooks Orpik, I think, who went knee to knee on Derek Stepan.
Oh, was that against the Pens? Yeah.
Yeah, and Tortorella called them out. You know, most arrogant organization in the league. It's just gutless, and I love how he ended that interview with they'll whine about something else over there, starting with their two fucking stars. So I shared that, and it was that video resonated with me after the game last night.
Yeah, no, I definitely can understand why. Raphael with the $5 donation. Thank you so much for that, buddy. I appreciate it. He asks, or says rather, do I think the Rangers make the playoffs without Igor? If so, in a wild card spot. Now, see, this is kind of a trick question for me personally, because what do you mean without Igor? Do you mean like without Igor in general, like he just wasn't ever here, or like if say he was injured, God forbid? Because I would say that if say it was a situation where maybe we lost Igor early this season, the Rangers would have made a proper trade to at least have a 1-year replacement. And depending on what that replacement could be enough. I think wild card's possible, but in a nutshell, though, I do find it hard to believe that the Rangers make it where they have now, at least without Igor. I mean, he's single-handedly the reason why the Rangers were where they were, especially in the first half leading into the trade deadline when they had such an anemic, inconsistent offense. You had a top 6, but you did not have a bottom 6.
Yeah, and you have a really good point there. If this team doesn't have Shesterkin, does that mean they never had Shesterkin? Does that mean Shesterkin goes down with injury at the start of the season? What does not having Shesterkin mean? If it means we never had Shesterkin, then they would have made a move for a different goalie. You would have had a better goalie in net than Georgiev.
Yes. And who would that have been? We'll never know. But that's
They
thankfully
could have gone
we don't have to know.
I mean, they could have gone for Freddie Anderson. They could have traded for a guy like UC Saros a couple of years ago when Rainier was still the goalie in Nashville.
Yep.
So many options. But look, the Rangers are where they are thanks to several factors. The biggest factor is Shesterkin. Yes.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to answer a couple more before we wrap up the show. And again, appreciate everyone that's listening. Rangers Review episode 56. AZ says, the way hockey equipment is made now, when you hit into someone, you actually get banged up yourself. Many concussions occur due to simple hitting your head against a shoulder pad when a player turns. Now, see, I'm not one to speak on this in regards to equipment. I'm not following it to say give a proper response. However, that I wouldn't be surprised if this were the case. I know that equipment can, of course, still be an issue with things. One thing I will say in regards to injuries and equipment, the one thing that I don't agree with at all in the NHL is that when getting in a fight, for example, you have to keep your helmet on now. I don't see how that benefits either player. And I think that there's actually more risk of potentially getting hurt, especially with your hand. I know that their point is because they're trying to eliminate, injuries, from fights in general, fighting in general. But I think it's just a poor way of going about it. Just one little tidbit to take out of this comment here.
Yeah. Look, I've never had goalie equipment on, so I don't know how that impacts your movement. But well, that's not true. I've had a blocker and a glove on my hands once. But yeah, I think Shesterkin's going to be fine. I'm not worried there. I also think that goalies are used to getting hit sometimes. It's not like it never happens. Remember when the Smith left the game on Tuesday and everyone thought it was cramp?
Yeah, I mean, even Hank was like saying that he was like a little soft, but little did we know how serious his injury was.
Yeah. Goalies don't give up because they their leg cramps up.
You really think the Smith said, this damn calf. Oh my goodness, I can't stretch it out. I can't do it. I know that I might be the reason why we win or lose single-handedly tonight. And I know it's my first ever career playoff start that I grinded out through 3, normal periods in overtime. But yeah.
I mean, it's not like Casey the Smith was going all Jim Mora like playoffs. No, he didn't stay on the ice,
Yeah. Here, one other comment from the same person here in the chat from AZ that I like to answer is, what does Gallant attempt to change to contain the Crosby line? That's a great question because, Steven, you said it yourself. This is a line that has yet to be contained. Jake Genzel's doing Jake Genzel things, especially when you look at how Genzel scored in game 1, not as much as game 2. I mean, just absolutely piss poor defense. Genzel's first goal was right in front after Igor made a stellar save, but the Rangers were nowhere near to help him out defensively. And then the second goal was a beautiful pass by Crosby, but it was just, again, piss poor defense still by the Rangers there to allow Genzel to get backdoor open in front of Igor for the quick shot off for his second goal. Then yesterday, again, a little bit different, but point is that line's murdering us so far. And it's specifically that line. The Penguins are not showing their depth nearly to the degree that the Rangers are, in my opinion. By the end of the day, if you can't contain a top line, they're going to continue to score. So how are the Rangers and Gallant specifically going to try to do this, Steven? What's your opinion?
I mean, are you going to tweak your lines, or are you going to try a new strategy? I don't think Gallant's going to play with his lines right now. I think Gallant's happy with the way his lines are shaped out. Although, if I were to make one change to the lineup, I'd probably swap Vetrano and Kakko to give that Zibanejad line a more defensively reliable player in Kakko, and give that third line a little bit more speed. And if you have Zibanejad and Kreider playing with Kakko against that Crosby line, I think that would solidify that a little bit in your own zone. But I don't think it's going to happen. Gallant has to figure out a strategy that'll work.
And I think the strategy might need to be more than just focusing on that line. I think it just has to do more with the entire play style for the Rangers, where
and let's also not forget, now you're going to Pittsburgh. You play on the road 2 games, which means you are the coach to put your lines out first.
Yep.
Aside from an icing, you are always the first coach to put out your line. So if you put out the Zibanejad line, and Mike Sullivan looks at that and goes, the Crosby line has been dominant against that line, he's going to put the Crosby line out there. You know, the Rangers had that advantage in games 1 and 2. Now the Penguins have that advantage in games 3 and 4. I think what matters most in that situation, especially defensive zone faceoffs, they have to win more faceoffs. They have to be better on the dot, especially in their own zone. They're getting killed in their own zone. I think their faceoff percentage in their own zone was 37%.
Yeah,
that's just not good enough.
Agreed.
That's not good enough. Could you see, because Gallant was tweaking it a little bit yesterday, where he didn't change up the lines per se, but what he did do was, for certain faceoffs, for certain draws, he would put Cobb out there with Zibanejad and Kakko just for the faceoff.
Yeah.
And then you win the faceoff, Cobb goes to the bench, Vetrano comes on. Yeah, that's something that you could maybe play around with a little bit. Try to focus a little bit more on winning faceoffs. I'm not worried about the Malkin line at all. You know, Malkin gets pushed around by everyone. Schneider, Miller, Reeves, Lafreniere.
And this isn't to slight Malkin. You know, he's not soft by any stretch, but this is what happens when you have younger, fresher, and really pumped up defensemen that are all the size, if not bigger, than Evgeny Malkin. That's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, and that's the difference between Crosby and Malkin.
Yeah.
Crosby still takes it to another level.
And that's always been the difference between Crosby and Malkin, because, you know, this is going to wrap things up on today's show, folks. But when you look at them, how many times has Malkin thrived when Crosby wasn't in the lineup? And how many times has Crosby thrived when Malkin wasn't in the lineup? Yes, they've both been in sync together, not on the same line, but you know what I mean. But it is bizarre how their games have changed over the years, depending on who's healthy, who's not. And Malkin, the biggest gripe with him has always been his health. And if it's either that or it's just the motivation, you know, especially when you've won as much as they all have at this point in their careers. At times, it can be a little bit more difficult to have that same drive. And I feel that with Malkin, we have seen that more than maybe we have with Crosby, because Sid just knows. I mean, he's always locked in. And don't get me wrong, so is Malkin is playing very good. Not trying to denounce him by any stretch, but I'm trying to reaffirm and, you know, just further agree with your original statement here.
By the way, I know we've talked a lot about Shesterkin winning the Vezina. You know, Kreider having a career year with 50 plus goals, Panarin on the verge of 100 points. But now Braun, Vetrano, Kopp, they're all contributing. I don't know if we've talked about this enough, but I think Chris Drury is a candidate for General Manager of the Year.
Yeah, I think the Rangers are candidates for everything this year. I think Gerard
Gallant,
great chance at Jack Adams.
Gallant should at least be in the conversation. I would almost say he's guaranteed top 3 in votes.
Probably.
If Calgary wins the Cup, it's probably going to be Daryl Sutter.
Calgary ain't winning the cup.
No.
Calling it right now.
But yeah, Gallant top 3 coach in Jack Adams voting. Drury's going to be top 3. He has to be top 3 in votes for general manager of the year. Shesterkin is a lock for the Vezina. There's no way someone else is winning it. There's no way. And I know playoffs aren't part of the, the like the curriculum, I think they call it, or no, it's not part of the
playoffs
equation.
don't matter. It's regular season performance because not everyone makes playoffs,
Yeah, doesn't matter. Regular season, he was still miles ahead of everyone else.
Yep.
It's been an unbelievable season. And look, if we get past the Penguins, if we make it to the second round, I already consider this season a success because we are better than we were a year ago. If we make it to the second round, I said it before, that's gravy. To me, that's just gravy. That's the icing on the cake.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, man, what a season it has been. And playoff hockey is so exciting, man.
It's so exhilarating. I mean, Steven, last night you got to just understand my perspective. I'm watching the Rangers game and I'm watching the Mets game and I'm about to turn off the Mets game, right? And I'm just so happy. I'm like, thank God the Rangers are playing so good tonight. I needed this for my soul. It felt so great. You're getting, the chills that I would get from when I was younger as a kid watching playoff hockey. And then for the Mets to do what they did at the same time. I mean, Steven, I want to go streaking more than I could even begin to tell you. Last night was just a historic day that I will never forget. But I also think, however, that it is now time for us to briefly talk about the history of the New York Rangers and their jersey number of 56. So, Steven, do you know the history of the New York Rangers in 56? Because I got to say, off the top of my head, there's maybe one person crossing my mind, but I think it's not his number, though. So I'm concerned to say it.
Before we go over the names, can I point out that today's date is 5/6?
Oh, wow. Good point. That is a good point. There you go.
Yeah, there's only been one player who wore 56 in an official Rangers game.
How long tenured was he with the Rangers?
I think he played like 2 or 3 seasons. Let me check quickly. 98 games over the course of 3 seasons from 2008 to 2012.
Oh, 2008, 2012. And that's a defenseman, I take it.
He finished 17th in Calder voting in 2010, 2011.
Maybe he isn't a defenseman. Is he a center?
It's from St. Cloud, Minnesota.
Did he change his number?
Nope.
And he was a Calder kid.
Oh, 17th. I mean, he wasn't like in the conversation, but
okay.
He got some Calder votes. In 98 games, 4 goals, 14 assists.
Oh,
it is a defenseman.
It isn't a defenseman?
It is a defenseman.
Oh,
yes.
It is a defenseman. Should I know who this is?
His career got cut short by a concussion.
Oh, no. Oh, is it Michael Sauer?
Yep, Michael Sauer.
Fucking Dion Phaneuf, that piece of shit. All right. That's all I got to say. I'll never forget Phaneuf for that. Now, Sauer was so hyped up. I know. I remember the whole story with him. My dad explained it so well. Like he seemed like he was the next big thing on the Rangers blue line. Then Dion Phaneuf said otherwise.
McDonough Sauer. That was the pair. We had Stahl Girardi and then McDonough Sauer.
That's crazy. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
the tragic thing is that his older brother Kurt Sauer also had to retire due to concussions.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That not to the same extent because he still had a great career, but that reminds me of Eric Lindros and his brother. Because his brother dealt with really bad concussions as well, I believe. Islanders draft pick, right? Did not have nearly the type of career that Eric did.
Yeah, look at that. Kurt Sauer, by the way, 357 NHL games, so he did have a little bit more of a career.
Okay.
But yeah, Eric Lindros, his brother Brett, Yeah, 2 seasons, 51 games for the Islanders.
Yep.
Yeah. So only player to play with number 56.
So he must have changed his number because someone said this in the chat, and I agree. I remember Eric Sauer as number 38.
Hold on, let me check.
Unless we're thinking of a different player. Yeah, I don't remember him as 56.
Oh no, yeah, he changed to 38 in so he played 56 for 3 games in 08-09.
I said Eric, not Eric. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Sauer, and then he changed to 38 for 010-11 and 11-12.
Okay.
He
Yeah,
played
that's
19 games in 2011-2012 until he went down with the with injury.
Gotcha. Okay.
Dion Phaneuf.
Sean Avery knows what to say right now. if you remember, it's the floppy seconds.
my two of my favorite all-time hockey related interviews are Sean Avery sloppy seconds and Dan Boyle.
Dan Boyle
referring to Larry Brooks and Brett Sergalis as clowns in the locker room.
That was probably the most entertaining part of Dan Boyle's tenure as a New York Ranger.
I know Dan Boyle didn't have a great 2 years as a Ranger on the ice, but dude, off the ice, he was respected by his teammates. He was, and that last interview, to me, that made him a cult hero. that made him a cult icon in Rangers history. To call out Larry Brooks, who basically complained every time about how Dan Boyle was terrible, and even if he was, that gets in a player's head. That interview by Dan Boyle was epic. Oof.
Absolutely. But you know what, Steven? I think it's about that time. So I want to thank everyone again that chimed in. This was episode 56 of Rangers Review. Guys, I'm assuming we'll probably be back after game 4. So however the next 2 games go, we'll probably talk, I would say, either on Tuesday or Thursday of next week. So stay tuned for that. Big couple games for the Rangers in Pittsburgh. No more home ice advantage, even though that it didn't mean much to the officials, that's for sure. So we'll see maybe if things kind of turn on its head here in Pittsburgh starting tomorrow night. But again, we really appreciate it. Very excited. So electric to watch Rangers playoff hockey once again, especially when they're playing well the way that they are. But Steven, do you have any final words before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, quick note on Ryder Korczak, who signed.
I was gonna say it. I've been looking at the jersey the whole time. Fine, take it. Yeah. Take it away, Steven. Go ahead.
Ryder Korczak, center, Moose Jaw Warriors in the WHL, was a 3rd-round pick in 2021 by the Rangers. 75th overall. I think that's the same pick as Pavel Buchnevich, 75th overall.
3rd round, 75th.
Signed his entry-level contract yesterday, a 3-year deal. Not slide eligible because he turns 20 years old later this year. I expect him to start in Hartford. He's eligible to play in Hartford for that same reason. He turns 20 by the end of the year. So yeah, next season we're going to have a couple of centers joining the fray in Hartford. Carl Hendrickson's coming over because he's eligible finally after this season. Ryder Korczak. I don't know what's going to happen with Evan Vierling. Maybe he's going to get a contract too. We'll see. Evan Vierling is eliminated, so technically nothing is standing in the Rangers' way of signing him. They have until June 1st, so 3 more weeks. If Evan Vierling is not signed, he has to re-enter the draft in July.
Gotcha.
Congratulations to Ryder Korczak, and another update on prospects. Yaroslav Lars, who the Rangers drafted in the 5th round last summer from the Czech Republic, played in Finland the last couple of years, played for Jokerit's under-20 team. He's coming over to North America. He's joining the Providence Friars and Brett Berard.
Oh, sweet. There you go. Build that chemistry, why don't you?
Yeah, so interesting. Hugo Olas, the Swedish goalie, made a similar move last year when he came over from Sweden to play for the Merrimack Warriors, I think.
Okay.
I'm blanking on Merrimack's team name now, but yeah, Lars is joining the Providence Friars. Brett Berard expected to play another year in college, so 2 players on the same team that have Ranger ties next season. That'll be fun.
Awesome.
And then the final update I have worth calling out: the Flint Firebirds won their first ever playoff series in franchise history 2 days ago. Brennan Othman scored the game-winning goal in Game 7 against the Owen Sound. The Owen. Man, I'm blanking on team names now. Owen Sound Attack. And tonight they start against the Sioux Greyhounds in Game 1 of Round 2. They have home ice advantage, so they start at home.
Awesome. Yeah, no, Othman is continuing to have a tremendous year, making all of us Ranger fans very familiar with the former first-round pick.
And making a lot of Ranger fans eat crow because nobody liked this pick on the day it was made.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. He proved a lot of people wrong.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to see what he's going to do with the Rangers over these next couple of years because he looks ready to go sooner than I think some people may have originally expected. But okay, that'll do it. Thank you all so much again for listening where we get your podcasts. This is Rangers Review episode 56. I'm Steven. I'm not Steven. I'm Wardy. That's Steven. And that's going to do it for this one, folks. Thank you all so much. We'll be back after Game 4 of the Rangers-Penguins first round series. But until then, Steven, let's go Rangers.
Let's go Rangers.